You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers. Welcome to OffHeap episode 83. Hey everyone, happy New Year, and we are back. We're finally back. For those who are tuning in, this is our first episode of the year 2024. We are going to be doing a little bit of a recap, kind of like end of the year stuff. Hopefully everybody has been rested and ready to get more Java news. My name is Freddy Guime. I'm one of the distinguished principal engineers here at Expedia Group, author, speaker, Java champion, and I'm here with my usual suspects.
Hey everybody, Bob Paulin, independent consultant from Chicago, focusing on JVM technologies, Java champion, CJUG board chair, Apache Software Foundation member. That's me.
Hey everyone, Josh here. Jakarta EE developer, Java developer at large, database administrator, author, speaker.
Everyone, Michael Manella, director from Broadcom, responsible for the open source Spring team, author, speaker, Java champion, and curmudgeon at large.
Is this the first Broadcom intro for you, Michael? I think
Yep.
it is. All right. That was smooth.
Oh, that's cool. The puppet master, the man behind Old Spring. At
the guy who painfully hasn't coded in longer than he'd rather admit.
Yeah, no.
Doesn't show, but okay.
All right. So before we dive in, I wanted to thank our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a monitoring and analytics platform that integrates with over 450 technologies, including AWS services, Docker, and Kubernetes. Datadog's platform brings together metrics, traces, and logs in one place, so you can get full visibility in your environment and improve your application performance. With machine learning-based alerts, customizable dashboards, and distributed tracing, Datadog makes it easy to unify disparate data sources so you can troubleshoot faster. Start your free Datadog trial today. Listeners of this podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create a dashboard. Visit javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. And again, that URL is javaoffheap.com/Datadog. They have been, very good sponsor for us, making sure that, the mics are on and the beers are flowing. So, give them a shot at, javaoffheap.com/Datadog. All right. Well, welcome back. I hope everybody had a good break, right?
2024, here we go.
I'm busy.
Yeah. No, I took the holiday break and I did absolutely nothing, and that was glorious for like 3 weeks.
That's nice.
Well, where do we start? Okay, news. This and this is one of my personal favorite, because I was so geeked out about this. So this is the 1 billion road challenge. For those who don't know, there was a Gunnar Morling created this challenge in December as part of Java 21 has been released. How much can we push the performance out, right? And essentially what this is you have this kind of file that has 1 billion rows that has a name, a city name, and a temperature. And the idea was, how fast can you read this 1 billion rows and essentially group them by city and give us the min, max, and average for each city on that data set, right? And the idea, the restrictions was it must be done in Java. You must not use external libraries, where you can write whatever code you want, and you can build it however you want it. If you want to use GraalVM, go ahead. If you want to use a different JVM, go ahead. And the interesting part was that I think the test machine was 16 cores, something like that, with some amount of memory. The original solution, I think, or the baseline, was something like 6 or 10 minutes. And the latest solution, this is kind of like the fun part, the last solution to make it to the board was around 1.5 seconds. So essentially it went from like 10 minutes to like 1.5 seconds to actually read 1 billion rows and calculate the min, max, and average, right? And it's so much fun. I think we can have a whole, maybe we should do a clubhouse on that.
Maybe we should.
Yeah, that one is actually, because I can keep talking. Like there's a lot of techniques in there, and I think like the interesting part is like the ultimate solutions were done on GraalVM, and they were starting to use exoterics. Every time that you start like thinking about optimizations, you always get to the point where readability starts being sacrificed in terms of performance. That's usually the jing and yang of it. So this is not something that you go in, look at the best code and copy it over and paste it in where you need to do, right? Like this is more of like understanding what happens behind the scenes. But the interesting part, like in the Twitch stream that you know, the essentially where Gunnar was talking to like the top 5 people there. One of them was a GraalVM contributor. It was like they got so many ideas of like why is the reason why people were doing this tricks, right? Like they were figuring out like, yeah, this is how you know you do swar, or you do this kind of like group unrolling to get better performance, right? And the best part is like they're like the team, the GraalVM team is like, oh my gosh, we can learn this and we can do this in the back. Like you don't have to explicitly write the trick in Java to essentially like coerce it to do it. The GraalVM team says like, oh, maybe there's something that we can do that where you don't have to write that, and we internally figure out this is the way we optimize it. So that's like amazing where you know like you know, even this little thing, it's not little, it actually was a big effort to actually do, can generate a better virtual machine that it still makes it faster with us not having to write simple code, or us having to worry about like all this like weird like conditions and stuff. So
Yeah.
super fun. You got it, guys. When you get a chance, like watch the videos, go to the websites, and geek out like I did for like 3 days.
It kind of hits on like, so one of the first conferences I went to was like a no fluff, just stuff conference. And Brian Getz was there. And I remember asking the question, it's like, hey, any performance tips like that you would give me, you know, knowing what you do and what I do? Like that. He's like, actually, no, that's my problem. Like I should be making the JVM do that for you. So you shouldn't be using esoteric performance tips. If you're doing something a lot, it's up to us to figure that out and make it faster. But I guess what the challenge shows though is that sometimes like they may not be paying attention to those use cases, or maybe a contest or two is not a bad thing for those VM teams to see. It's like, hey, this is how people are actually doing things, or how people are tuning things. Maybe we shouldn't be making them do that.
Yeah, yeah. It just puts it to the forefront, right? You know, it was interesting, like Thomas was like looking at this translates to essentially 100 assembly instruction sets, and we can reduce it to 70. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like it was, yeah, it's fun because you always get that like, oh, you cannot do it as fast because it's Java, right? But the reality is that while it is true that if you write everything in assembly, you can probably eke out more performance, it comes at an incredible amount of cost on everything else, right? So you know, you can get actually very extremely fast that 95% of the people in the world will be good enough for.
Yeah.
And yeah, that 5% when you have like, I don't know, like a pacemaker that really needs to be on time, then yeah, sure.
I would love a 7th column to be on that spreadsheet to be how long they spent actually working on the code.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, hours were lost.
Build hours.
Sure, yeah. That'd be useful down the road, though. I mean, you work on something like that, you're certainly going to use it down the road
Yeah.
in some of your code, or even for your real job, something you're going to be doing.
No, and the fun part is Roy Van Jeet was one of the better one of the better solutions. But what he did is he documented how he started, how he went, And that was the best part, because you kind of start with like, okay, I'm gonna do parallel streams, right?
Mhm.
And then he just kept going at it, because like part of the Gunner's rules was like all the code is out over there. Like every submission was a PR. Everybody can look at everybody else's code, so you can technically steal the ideas that you see and then
Mhm.
just apply it. And you could essentially win if you find that last micro optimization to put it on the end, right? But Raven Jit kind of like walked through like, oh, we first started with streams, then we did like memory map files, then we did block reading, then we did like sizing of the threads this way because that works better. And those lessons actually, because they're the beginning of the optimization, they carry around like a lot of other places, right? Like the last part when you're starting to like shave like 1 second to get into the top 1%, yeah, those get the weird ones where you're unrolling loops and doing weird things. But Roy Van Geet kind of shows like the progression, and like 80% of that stuff I actually took off and applied it to another project that I'm working on, which is almost like that. It's textual file like parsing, and it was like, yeah, I there's so much to learn there. So
There's a
yeah,
lot to be learned from looking at that code, I'm sure.
yeah.
And it's pretty, the other thing I thought was pretty neat to look at was that, that number that you said was the best result, that 1.5 seconds. That's with 8 cores. And if you go on, that was what they allowed for the initial contest. But then people went on to go ahead and use more cores, and it got down to like 0.0323 and below that even when they were doing even more optimization. So, when you go beyond the 8 cores, you go to 32 cores or whatever, and it gets even more wild.
Yeah, no, it was fun. We had a discussion. One of my coworkers was like, he was big onto Elastic and like kind of like scatter, and it's like, oh, 1 billion rows. Oh, we can like have a cluster and distribute it, and then do
Yeah.
map reduce, because that's how you think about it. And it's like, no, one machine. We're done in like a second anyway. So yeah.
Mhm.
You're not going to
Yeah.
get 0.3 if you go distribute.
Right.
That was one thing I was curious about, is the preventing of using dependencies of any kind. Don't get me wrong, I can understand there is it eliminates the chances for cheating and using like JNDI to work to basically shell out to assembly or something like that.
Yeah.
That you can avoid cheating like that. But it'd be interesting to see if you have to keep it all in the JVM. Are there dependencies that could help and make things better? Full disclosure, I'm reading the solution, that one right now. I don't think so. There's some things in here I'm Googling right now just out of curiosity, like some of the stuff I didn't even realize. But like scanner.unsafe.get long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is essentially that is the unsafe memory map. You allocate the memory map file, and then you have a scanner that is pointed to it, and you're actually reading out of the memory map file.
Yeah.
I like you can like it's kind of cool to see, like it's actually readable to understand what he's trying to do. But yeah, you will do that
Not in
all
production.
yeah. You really
You
need that.
could.
You could.
Oh, nobody's gonna stop you.
Yeah.
But I think
Just good luck to the next person reading that code, I think is
Yeah.
really the moral of the story there.
Well, the interesting part is they managed to like they still created classes around it. So that was kind of like the saving grace, right? Like if you have classes with an interface and then you say super optimized read, and then you have a regular implementation that is your regular read, and then you kind of understand what it's doing, then I was kind of fine. Like if you really needed that optimization, but most people don't anyways. But to your point, Michael, I think the restriction was artificial just because Gunnar didn't have enough time to
Yeah,
review.
that's fair. That's fair.
Like I don't think it was just like, I don't know what you're bringing in. I just want to see Java code. We wanted to
Yep.
make it just clean. Like I think he was okay. Like if you need to copy and paste like from whatever library, you can do that. That's
You can do it. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, most of them are using Java idioms under the covers. So, I mean, it's.
yeah.
Yep.
All right, and then like I said, we can talk all day about this, but
Yes, we could.
but let's move on to
Let's
the
move
next.
on.
All right.
Josh, Glassfish, right?
So the main announcement is that Jakarta 11 is underway. Certainly, you can go out there and even test it now by downloading Glassfish 8.0.0 M1. And if you did that, you would find that there are a few things you could take a look at for 11 already. So some of the security APIs, Jakarta Faces implementations have already been put into place. Some of the servlet things are there. So, if you're interested in Jakarta EE, this is a good way to get started with 11. Just go and take a spin on, this Glassfish version and see what you can do with it. Now, the interesting thing is that over the past couple of months, some things have changed drastically with Jakarta E11. One of the biggest things is the minimum was originally going to be JDK 21, and that has been moved now to JDK 17 as the minimum.
Dun, dun,
So I
dun.
think, I'm not 100% sure why that has happened. I just saw it in a post, and I think that the explanation was that there wasn't really anything that was going to make major use of JDK 21. But I think, also on this podcast kind of question how are they going to get the concurrency API to use virtual threads if we're not using JDK 21. And so if you do look at the concurrency specification for 3.1, it's saying 21 is going to be the minimum. Now, I'm not 100% sure if they've just not updated that site yet, that page, or what the plan is there. Maybe the plan is that there's going to be a subset of Jakarta 11 that's 21 only. I don't know. That will include that, like 11.1. I'm not quite sure what the plan is there yet.
Okay.
But more to come on that.
So help me understand. So, I mean, and maybe this is a silly question, but you've got a spec, right, that lists 17 as the minimum. If I were to run, an application server on 21, and let's say I were to implement virtual threads in a way that I could swap that in for a connector, same, I mean, think Tomcat, how they changed from to the like the NIO connector from their basic connector with an implementation. If I were to do that, does that break the spec? Like what, like walk me through that. Is it just not certified then? Because we're not certifying on 21 with virtual threads, it's not tested, but it could work.
That's what I'm understanding. I think because the testing would happen under 17, so you wouldn't be able to test that Java 21 code, right?
So I'm going through the issue that was opened right now. Here's the link to it. That was actually the actual issue that was that started this conversation. It was from Red Hat. Their arguments were mainly that Java 21 isn't well adopted enough to justify this. But it does call out somebody, where is it at? I don't know who these people are, but there's a comment that means virtual threads will be optional, in parentheses, or not available in Jakarta 11. And somebody replies, the only specification wanting use of virtual threads is Jakarta concurrency, which is already optional. So I would wonder how, like, this, does a servlet spec not make any mention of it? Or does the, like,
I've not looked, I haven't stayed up to date as much as I should have with the specs. I'm not sure what the servlet spec has coming in Jakarta 11. I'm not sure, but I can look into that.
Yeah, that would be the most likely place to be like, hey, if I'm trying to get benefits out of it, could I swap out in servlet virtual threads for
right. I mean, there's, I think of it, are swapping out virtual threads for physical threads in servlets. anything data related where synchronization impacts are going to show up with virtual threads, and you need to, tweak how that's handled in implementation.
So I'm looking at the servlet spec right now, and it says for the release 6.1, it's just going to be a dot release in Jakarta 11. And, there's nothing mentioned of virtual threads. It says actually Java SE 11 or higher. So they're not wrong when they're saying the only spec that probably cared about the virtual threads is concurrency.
Currency. Yeah, I guess it would come down to, does anything in virtual threads invalidate the servlet behavior? And honestly, it probably shouldn't, right?
It feels
But
weird that it would, right? But yeah, stranger things have happened.
stranger things have happened. So they're not certifying. I mean, I guess it's probably a little bit like user beware sort of thing. You can try it, that it's just the minimum. But as far as certification's concerned, you're certifying against 17. So if everything works on 17, it passes the certification. If
Correct.
something breaks on 21, that's not necessarily how that works, as far as I understand it.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the big news is that if you're interested in looking at 21, you should, or excuse me, 21 at Jakarta 11, you should look at Glassfish 8.0.0 M1, and you'll need JDK 17 to run that.
All right, the next one. I think you put this one in, Bob. JDK 20.
I didn't, but I put a few links to it in. So it's the Java 22 ramp down. So we've moved past one. One was released. Java 22 is general availability for, it looks like March 19th of this year. And just to revisit an old topic, since they've been on the release chain, I don't think they've missed a date. So we can actually hey, March, it's gonna happen.
God. Do you remember the 7, 8? Oh yeah, it's coming.
I mean, really applause for the Oracle JVM team that they
Big time.
they haven't missed a date since they moved to that. So I know it's old news, but it's still kind of impressive, a software delivery team that just keeps hitting dates. So I'm gonna applaud that as an engineer.
But date-driven stuff is so much easier.
I agree, but it's still great. I mean, again, they haven't delayed. They haven't. This is a couple years now, and it's working. So I hope they just keep doing it. But yeah, stuff in there I'm just gonna kind of go through the list of the JEPs that I see targeted region pinning for G1. So some G1 optimizations. Statements before super, though. That one made me I had to read that twice.
No, I am so looking forward to that. That's fine. I'm a heathen. And I guess we should just describe a little bit what it is. Usually, if you're extending a class that has a particular constructor, not an empty constructor, right? You're extending some kind of circles and shapes, right? You must call the first line on your extended class constructor must be the super call. And 80% of the time, okay, maybe 90% of the time, that's all what you need. But sometimes you need to do some kind of treatment on that constructor, and meaning you get some stuff that you need to extract or compute before you actually can be able to call the super. And every time you need to do that, you need to do this kind of song and dance of having kind of a static factory internal to the object that you're creating. And it's ugly, is cumbersome. What this JEP or this GSR allows you to do is no, you can write things as long as you call super sometime before the end of the constructor. You're fine. And oh my gosh, that's I know that it's not pure, but my gosh, makes life easy. So I wanted it.
As a newer developer, though, I can understand how it's going to be. It makes things more complicated, and it will probably lead to some bad habits.
Yeah, maybe. It leads to
Everybody on this call, like, learn the rules and then learn when to break them, right? Everybody in this call has been around enough to know the rules. So everybody on this call is probably well enough
yeah,
along the
yeah,
list
yeah, yeah.
or
It's
when to
like
break them. But like doing things like this always makes me uneasy when I think of Java and the masses. Maybe it's just me, but um,
you can create bad code everywhere.
you can. So what you like enable people to do it when they
This enables nicer code too.
Somebody's gonna fail their
That's-
screening interview because of this, though.
Yeah.
Oh gosh!
Of
It's
course,
like,
you can
well,
do super later on, and somebody's gonna be like, "No, you could never do that," and they'd be wrong.
yeah I don't yeah
you have
they
enable preview features.
yeah
Yeah, no, this would be one of those features that, it should be enabled depending upon how many hours you've run on the JVM. So if you've been on this JVM for a while,
Oh gosh!
okay, we'll let you
you
start
must
to
be the
use it
stall to
now.
ride.
Yeah,
There is a timer. Like
Yeah.
you have access to this feature now.
all right.
All right.
There are some other interesting stuff in here though.
Yeah,
Yep.
what's I don't want to just list them all
String
off
temp-
to list them. What's the next
string
most
string
interesting?
templates, second preview, stream gatherers is interesting.
Yeah.
So being able to add operators.
Yeah, forwarding functions in memory API, which is the structure answer to unsafe, right? So yeah, like I think they are getting close to really deliver on deprecating unsafe. So and this is part of it, right? So for those who don't know, like there is a way for Java programs to get kind of like direct access to memory and certain special functions that are technically like not supported by the JVM, and a lot of this is using sun miss unsafe, which has like a big warning: do not use this. But everybody who wanted to use it actually used it. Mostly comes in kind of like libraries that are hitting poor performance on trying to do very fast reads and writes, and the Oracle, the Java team at some point in time said, you know what, you should really not use those because we're going to remove them down the road. And the community kind of said like, okay, that's fine, but we need some kind of way to do these things in an orderly fashion, right? And this is starting to be like kind of that in there, right? Like this is essentially how do you access memory, like essentially unmanaged memory through the JVM in an orderly manner. And this is great because it really is like a supported method. Sun miss and safe was never supposed to be used for the masses, but it was just too good of a tool to like let go for the most popular libraries out there. So yeah, this is actually good. This is exciting.
Yeah, and I just posted an article in here on Inside Java that they are proposing a JEP to deprecate for removal a number of the unsafe methods. So this is the new way, I think.
Yeah,
It's coming. And the other thing I like to see here is that one of these JEPs, the vector API, it's on its 7th incubator. That just tells me that they're really, these are putting through the test. I mean, they're not just throwing stuff into these releases and throwing it out there in production, and this code hasn't been widely, refined and tested. This is really good stuff, I think, that they're doing. I want to just applaud them, just like you had done as well.
yeah.
Keeping up with these releases, that's tough to do, but when you're doing, you're pushing things down the road to make sure it's got the right amount of eyes on it and everything, and been tested and used enough, it's good.
New toys. Like we actually released we just upgraded one of our projects to 21, and it's kind of funny. There is a particular use case where we want to start using virtual threads, but we kind of need to unroll some of the reactive stuff to be safe using it. So it's I know this day may come. I did not realize it was going to come so soon because everybody keep doing the release at the right time. So now it's an interesting dichotomy where the stuff that we did for reactive, most of it we keep it, but now there is actually a nice incentive to fix some things in an asynchronous way, but because it's one thread, is all objects are thread safe within there, and to start undoing some of like our, like, for example, immutability or unmodifiable rules for certain model things. So yeah, it's fun. Like new toys coming in.
Hey, for those of you that really want to see some new toys, you can download JDK 23.
At your own risk.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
Groovy.
I had to put Apache Groovy 5 Alpha 5 in here. And the main reason I did this is because this is one of those languages that you don't hear too much about.
I know, it's like when
Anymore.
you hear an actor
Anymore.
and they're still alive.
Yeah, they are still alive. Groovy 5.0. It's the next major version of Groovy. It's designed for JDK 11 plus. Alpha releases are not recommended for production use. And it's just great to see that, you know, this is still chugging along. People, I know a lot of people that are Groovy people, they love it. You know, I have a lot of friends that are actually Grails developers still, and
sorry.
they're enjoying that. And it's good to see that they're trying to keep it up and putting in. I don't even know really what the new features of this release are, but there are some new features coming. So
Oh wow, support for var with multi-assignment.
Yeah.
That's just looking like JavaScript. No,
I don't know that that's a good thing, though, is it?
Yeah, I did. I just.
I think that's his point.
A fact.
Yeah, that wasn't the compliment.
Yeah.
No, I said, like, it's interesting because like the place that'll be interesting. Will Gradle adopt it or not? Right? That'll be an interesting question, right? Because that's a place where I kind of run into Groovy mostly.
I mean, isn't the default for Gradle now Kotlin?
You know, but while I think that's true, how many Gradle files have you seen written in Kotlin, right? It hasn't caught up yet. So it's
Yeah, I don't know,
definitely, yeah.
They have a large install base in Groovy. Like, I get that, but I wonder if they would even. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they want to support the new versions of Groovy, or if they truly want people to move to Kotlin.
Yeah, because I'd actually probably like 3 weeks ago, that was my first Kotlin, like Gradle Kotlin project, and it's nice. Like the thing that I feel about like every time like I'm doing a Gradle on Groovy, and this might be the intersection of the two, is that it feels so fluid on how things can happen, because like Groovy is very lax on how to accomplish things, right? Like it says like, oh, you can do quotes, you can do parentheses, you can do object parsing and array deconstructing, and all of them look almost the same, but they're not. Like effectively the same, but what happens is then, depending on where you copy and paste code, you get some people defining Groovy dependencies one way, some people defining it in the other way, and like then it's Freddy spending like 20 minutes OCD trying to make sure that all of them are exactly the same way, right? But Kotlin, at least, it doesn't have that problem, because Kotlin is very, like, its syntax to get things done within the Gradle ecosystem is the same. So everything starts looking the same. So it's like, all right, you know.
Yeah, is IDE support for the Kotlin DSL for Rails? I'm sorry, for Gradle better than Groovy, because that's always been one of my biggest complaints about Groovy is, or I'm sorry, about Gradle is, I can follow the tutorial on the Gradle website. I'm like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. I have never in my life seen a Gradle build that looks anything like I just learned. And so when I go into that, by command space on my IDE, it gives me a whole bunch of gobbledygook that means absolutely nothing to me.
working.
Exactly. So like I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason I'm still a Maven guy. I've been wondering, is Kotlin gonna fix that for Gradle, or has it fixed it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't use IntelliJ, but I imagine that's where it would be.
No, it's interesting because you never know that you could have it. I think that's like, if you're always working with Groovy and Gradle, I will never have looked at autocomplete or trying to like tap space or anything, because like it just
doesn't work.
Yeah, it didn't. Well, yeah,
Suggest 8 different things if it did work. So
exactly. Like,
And nothing, and nothing
Parentheses or
useful,
no?
nothing that you want.
Yeah.
but when I did it on the Kotlin, to be honest, then there was autocomplete coming up, and I was the first of was confused. It's like, oh, okay, hello there.
Was it
These are
useful? Because I should take a step back. Command space will give me a list. Nothing I expect. Nothing I know what to do with. This command space, when you're using Kotlin, does it actually for Gradle? Does it actually like could you build a Gradle file from scratch with just your IDE?
from scratch. You still need some of the secret sauce of like what is the application. You need to include the application plugin. Like if you know those by memory, I guess you kinda, because that's just like dependencies that you need to bring in. But it does, yeah. Like to be honest, like mine was simple, right? Like it was a greenfield thing that I needed to create, and I got the chance to make it in Kotlin. So it was there. I don't know if it feels like it could, because you really get into the Kotlin ecosystem of like things, objects, definitions. I can kind of like go into the code and see what it's wanted. Um, but yeah, like in my sample of one, it feels like it might. I just don't know if it's important. Plus, you do get now like I've been using like GitHub Copilot, and that thing kind of like almost, I don't know if it's some results really, but you start getting autocompletes about like things you want to do. So that's the other part. So
I was just double checking on starttospring.io because we have under the build systems, we've got both options, Gradle
yeah,
Groovy and Gradle Kotlin. I was just checking which we have as default. We've got Gradle Groovy as still the default.
Hmm.
I
yeah.
I'm
think for
actually
you guys that makes sense.
going to ask why we have that. I honestly don't know. I know why we switched to Gradle, but I don't know why it's Groovy versus Kotlin.
Hope the bear.
I did use it.
I'm allowed.
Yes, you are.
All
Before
right.
we move on, I should probably mention also that Kotlin 2.0.0 beta 3 is underway. It's been testing, and you can get that now and play with that. So I want to give them each equal play here, equal airtime.
Yeah. Kotlin is the language that did like a lot of my a lot of like the things within my org, the default will be Kotlin. Like you can go into Java if you want to, but a lot of the templates and stuff that we have, it is around Kotlin. Um, some of them are going all the way to the extreme of saying, hey, we shouldn't have Java anymore, and I'm like, hold on there. We still have a place, but
Still have a place.
yeah,
It's just more tools for the tool shed, right? Just
yeah.
different ways to get the things done. Some work better than others. And, we were mentioning Gradle with Kotlin, and 2.0.0 has some Gradle improvements. Kotlin 2.0.0.
Mhm.
So
All right. Then
I think there's one more. So just to end on the low note that we have been ending most of our news items on, more layoffs. So I put an article in there about the NASA JPL layoffs. Looks like they had an 8% workforce reduction, hitting about 530 people. I know this one actually hit kind of close to home on some folks that I've collaborated with in the past on Apache projects that we're working on, the Mars rover and sampler projects. So even if you're in government, the layoffs keep on coming. So
yeah,
you have people that that are out there, definitely support them. Look, they're all looking to continue working and things like that. So
yeah, no, and I think this is one of like a string of loan layoffs, right? Like everybody has been, and I think we kind of start sliding in into our main discussion topic, which is our current job market and what can we do about it. But yeah, like you probably have been hearing if you're listening to the podcast, you're probably a software developer. If you're a software developer, you're being hearing that like Google had layoffs, Microsoft had layoffs. DocuSign has layoffs here in Seattle. So a lot of it, we've been seeing it trickling in. So it's definitely more of a reality where, it's not like a one-off. It seems like there is a constriction on engineers, and
According to layoffs at FYI, 134 tech companies have already had layoffs in 2024, affecting over 33,000, almost 34,000 employees as of this recording.
Yeah. So yeah, and then that is kind of like like trying to understand what happened, right? And that's a job for the punditry, right? So so we are so what happened, guys? What's
Well,
going
I mean,
on?
we reported, so let's tie this to the beginning of the year. So you go back to our January episode this year, we were starting to report on layoffs. But this feels a little different now than I think it did at the beginning of the year. I think there's several factors in that. And I think, one of the ones that I think hit me directly is that we're starting to see it act like before. It seemed like a lot of it was junior roles, it was mixed in with sales reductions. This is strictly hitting, I think it's hitting IT a lot harder than it was earlier in the year, like engineering IT. And it's hitting the senior roles, I think, a lot harder than before, where we weren't seeing seniors let go. Now we're seeing principals, we're seeing seniors, we're seeing distinguished, people way up the stack, being let go, which is definitely different. It's a different type of job market.
Yeah, for me, sorry, go ahead, Freddie.
No, go ahead.
There's two things that are interesting from my perspective. Number one, historically, when we've seen layoffs at this scale in our industry, in the software industry, it's usually followed more macroeconomic conditions. So the stock market's going down, there's, that kind of thing. So it's not just IT that's being impacted. It's across the job market in general. This doesn't feel like that. The job market in general, I mean, you keep seeing the stock market. Stock market's been going up for the past year. In general, you haven't seen that even feel like it's being we've had times in history where the stock market has gone up because people are cutting costs via layoffs. Like that has been one of the engines for that. Even that doesn't feel like it because it's not impacting everybody across the job market. IT feels different here. One of the explanations I read about, I don't know that if I completely buy into this, but during COVID, there was a lot of investment in IT. There was a lot of investment in the idea that, our world is going to be more virtual. It was obviously more virtual during the pandemic when we couldn't leave the house, but a lot of companies invested in IT projects that assumed that trend would continue post-COVID. And now they're using this as a way to shed those miscalculations, for lack of a better way of putting it. I don't know that I buy that that's completely this, because this feels too big for me.
So the idea is they're correcting for a glut of hiring on COVID?
During COVID, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so go ahead, Josh.
I just was going to say, it's not like it's only Zoom that's laying off people, or things like companies that are focused on remote work and trends like that. It seems to be across the board. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No, that's an excellent point. I mean, so I would actually make the argument, I think there are some macroeconomic things going on. Again, interest rates are much higher than they've been in the past, 2 decades now.
Yep.
And then also the salary growth that I think that was going on in IT during COVID was probably unprecedented. Well, I can't say unprecedented because there have been times where IT salaries have kind of gone through the roof, but they kind of went through the roof from what I've experienced in my lifetime. So while I completely agree that the stock market is going in the opposite direction as the job market as an IT worker, there may be some overgrowth that happened in IT that didn't happen in other sectors quite as much, that maybe is being compensated for. due to
That-
macroeconomic factors.
That's fair. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the compensation aspect, and you're right. Like that was something that during COVID, again, going back to the, we want to hire people because to overinvest in these projects and whatnot. It was a hot market, so everybody
Yeah.
could. So the salaries went up, and now this is a bit of a correction there, or could be a correction there. We'll see once things cool off and the market starts opening back up again, where salaries land with all this.
Yeah, no, there could be some downward pressure. I mean, you assume if the layoffs overcompensates from the hiring perspective, the economics professor would say, okay, yeah, wages would go down in that case, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see if that is in fact the outcome. I don't, you look around, different job posting sites, and you still see some pretty good salaries in IT, but which of those companies are actually hiring, which are just gathering resumes. There's a lot of different strategies that people use for HR that, does that actually represent the market? The actual market is who's actually getting hired and for what.
Yeah. That's fair.
And that is kind of interesting, right? Like the interesting question will be like, is it just that like they did not need any more, like the thing was built and now they just need to maintain it? Was it almost like we needed to break ground in getting there, and for that we need a big team? Is it one of those where now that we have the infrastructure, that now that we created what we wanted, our online strategy, now we just need to maintain it? Like it's an interesting question where is it because of COVID, you broke ground, you needed a big team, now you can scale back because COVID was just your interim strategy, not your main strategy? Like you're not an online first place, for example. So
that, I mean, that could be that could be one factor in it. I mean, did we build a bunch of stuff and now people are feeling like, hey, I can rest on my laurels because we did such a big sprint when we hired? But I'm not sure, because I don't get a sense that, I mean, like, so other companies and your competitors were doing the same thing. So I mean, everything's relative to your industry and what other people are doing in it. I tend to focus on the wage aspect of it too, because I think the other thing I've tended to see at clients, and even if you just are looking at job postings, there's a lot more, and again, this is a generalization based on my things I've been looking at. Seems like there's a lot more focus on offshore and nearshore development than in the US. I'm seeing a lot more postings for South America, a lot more postings for India again, where that kind of seemed to temper during COVID, even though, like, hey, we're all remote, it doesn't matter, right? I do think some of the wage pressures may be coming into play here, where folks are taking another hard look at, hey, can we save some money by offshoring some of our development again? So again, getting a little bit of flashbacks to early 2000s,
right.
when salary growth was pretty fast, to where folks were looking at, okay, can I get similarly skilled humans in a cheaper market?
And the thing is, like, it's almost like just because remote have to be enabled to survive COVID, right? Then it became easy. Like before it was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have a remote office because we actually have an office, everybody needs to show up.
Sure.
Now it's like, oh, we created our Zoom meetings, we know stuff. So now it's easy to slide into, oh, maybe we should just get some people from a different market, like you said.
I would argue that that's a false fallacy that or it's a fallacy that remote is easy. That it's as somebody who's been doing it for a whole lot longer than COVID. Literally, one of my interview questions when I do hire people since COVID is, have you ever worked remote? COVID doesn't count. And when you think about the offshoring model, the things that caused it to fail before, I don't think had anything to do with anything that we learned or perfected during COVID. because the thing, by taking the COVID resources that were still generally geolocated and just sending them home, like you don't need an office to bring those people together, but you still need time zone affinity. You still need language barrier, addresses. There are other things that you still need to be able to manage that are very hard to do when you're literally on the other side of the planet. Those things, those challenges, I don't think have gone away or have changed. And from my experience, like I've been doing remote now for 11 years, those are things we actively try to avoid, adding those challenges to the team.
No, and I think that is a good point. Like it might be, maybe there is something about like, because you've done it for 11 years, but there's a lot of companies that just started this because they were forced to, and now they're like, oh, let's try this out. And so maybe there will be like this kind of like knock on wood, hopefully there will be a correction where it's like, oh no, we outsourcing or near sourcing is not that great as we thought it was, and let's bring the people back in.
I think one thing that'll be interesting with regards to Bob, if you are right that wage pressures are encouraging companies to look offshore, I think one thing that'll be really interesting with regards to watch out for is the real estate market. Right now, there is a truckload of empty office space in at least the U.S. because people haven't gone back to the office. And I'm sorry, like there's only so long that major metropolitan areas can have 30, 40, 50% of their office space in the downtown area empty and sustain things. And let's not kid ourselves, they're not going to level downtown Chicago and rebuild it to be some other model, tomorrow. Like there's going to be a breaking point at some point where the office pull is going to, I don't think it's going to be everybody's got to go back, but I do think that the pendulum is still on we're getting away with this a bit right now. I think it's going to swing back.
I think that's happening. I mean, so again, I think there's a lot of companies that, and I mean, this has been in the news, that are instituting return to work policies, right? Folks that are getting laid off and trying to get rehired are coming into situations where it's hybrid, not remote. I think is a very common term to see in job postings these days, where there's an expectation that 2-3 days out of the week you're going to be somewhere that's not your home. So I mean, that even, but I think the point you're really making is are we sitting on a real estate time bomb? Yeah, that might be a little bit out of the context of usually what I'd cover on the show, but
it's like, I mean, if we're talking about the job market,
you have high interest rates and you have empty offices. That can't be a combination for trouble at all, could it?
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, Bob, Bob, Josh, well, Josh, you didn't work downtown, but Bob, do you know anybody really that's going downtown regularly these days in Chicago?
So again, I think there is a strong pull to return to work, return to the office on a number of companies. But like, again, like if you ride the train downtown, it is a fraction of what it used to be pre-COVID still. So, I mean, the empirical evidence of being on a train going downtown, it is a different experience than it used to be. So that tells me not as many people are going downtown. And a lot of them moved out to the suburbs during COVID. So you'd think you'd have more people on the trains, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, for context for the listeners, this podcast actually kind of started on the train a bit in that Freddie, Bob, and myself would have this very conversation on the train over beers on the same train line. And so we all rode the same train line back before Freddie became a trader in Chicago. But like they were packed. Like going our regular commuter days, they were packed. It was standing room only.
Yeah.
In where I live in Naperville, they used to have so you'd have the regular parking, you'd have essentially permit parking where you would pay monthly, you'd reserve a permit. And that was a decent chunk of things, but that would have a waiting list of multiple years to actually get one of those permits.
I never.
Naperville's
I
Neighbor,
put one. I don't think I ever got the email, and it's been like 7 years.
Naperville's completely scrapped the program.
Hmm.
There are no permits in Naperville anymore. It is only metered daily parking for the train,
Wow.
and it's never full. I've got a dentist that's in a building right at the train station, and I drive. I've had appointments like in the middle of the day. The parking lot's half empty. Still, like I remember because I wasn't somebody that commuted downtown every day from Naperville. I could time 8:25 I can get the last parallel parking spot on the street. 8:30 I could not. I was gonna have to park illegally or figure out another way to get to work. Like it was that tight.
Yeah.
Whereas like that's not the case anymore. Like it's I'm waiting for that shoe to drop to see what happens.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if it's ever going to get back to what it was though, because if hybrid is now a thing, unless every office is mandating people to come into the office Monday, Wednesday, and Friday or something, and everybody's rushing to get downtown on Monday, I don't think it's going to be that way again. But I don't know.
It's so weird. I was reading like this NPR kind of like special on New York Times or NPR. It might have been New York Times where they were saying that we're in the worst possible combination of things. Like people are stressed out because technically there's the hybrid that they're forcing, right? And there's problems because the times that you go in might not be the times that your peers go in. Like, there's still all this shift in schedule. So sometimes you might not see your boss. So you don't get that feedback that, okay, these are things are happening. So you're anxious all the time. And companies are trying to make it fun and to go to work and all these things. Right. Like, and then they have this they say like they create like, oh, let's have a Super Bowl watch party or something. And it becomes awkward because now you have to go and stay there and nobody wants to be there, but the company is like, I don't know how I give you food, I give you all these things, but nobody wants them. So it creates this kind of like loop where like they say that usually these type of changes, like when the industrial revolution happened, they usually take spans of like decades, like it's not happens in 1 or 2 years. So right now everybody's anxious because we are not used to even try to work both remote or hybrid. So it's like the result is that everybody's stressed out. So which I kind of agree.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety again. Like it's the layoffs have been cross industry. They've hit startups. They've hit big companies. There are some segments that I think have been hit harder than others. Like, I mean, I've been looking at the developer advocates on LinkedIn. That's been an especially hard hit segment. I don't have a rationale behind it, but that seems like there is an abundance of the developer marketing folks that have been targeted in the last couple of months. It's I think folks are looking for those like direct revenue contributors, and when you're sort of like, yeah, we contribute to revenue, but it's in a non-direct way, like I can't associate it in a very simple, like that's the stuff that now Michael's hiding his face, but I think it's tougher. I think when the market conditions get tighter, those are the things that people become more reactive to that.
Full disclosure, I am joking. Like Spring has direct revenue capabilities. I want to be crystal clear on this. Like it's a joke.
Yes. Or is it? Of course.
But yeah, I mean, I think there are people are looking for, again, things that are contributing to the bottom line in ways that can be traced, right? Because in
fruit.
Where it's like, okay, I can see how you are contributing to the company making money or the company being successful, whereas before, having a moonshot or something that might become something big was more commonplace. Folks are looking for more concrete things.
Yeah. But I think the like as we go through, like, I think we should talk about, like, like, what are we seeing, right? Like, we saw that there's people are being let go. Like, knock on wood, hopefully, that hasn't happened to you. But if it has, what are we seeing out there? Who's really hiring, or
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you look around a little bit, the hot stuff are a lot of the things we talk about on the show, like AI, like anything AI related seems to be
where is that?
in every single job post, which also leads to, do you know Python as being a very quick a job profile question as well? And I know we're the Java pub house, but yeah, the whole Python thing seems to be a big stickler that people are looking for because of the association with AI and data science, and the frameworks around that.
And that one I don't understand. So like I understood 5 years ago, if you were working on AI, you were building your own models, you were training them, you were doing the data science-y kind of stuff. You're not doing that anymore with any of these generative AI technologies, the chat GPTs and Hugging Faces and all those. Like, you're getting a model off the shelf. You're going to enhance it by providing context with a vector store and yada yada. But that's not Python. That's operationalizing things and integrating them into existing enterprise applications. That I would expect to be in Java or .NET or more enterprisey technologies. The Python association this time around doesn't make sense to me.
I find it so puzzling because, yeah, like you said, like, we're not building, like you're not training things, like
Right.
or if you are very focused on, like, it's not everybody. It will be startups or huge company that wants to create its own model, and that's gonna be news on its own, right?
Yep.
Like most of the people that are going to consume AI, or they're going to use AI, are probably just going to use it as consumers of somebody who already trained and refined a model. You are not doing that work. So yeah, I mean, you can
Yeah,
use for glue, but it's not like you have to be an expert on LL and on large language models in Python.
I mean, if you're an enterprise shop and you're looking to get into the AI space, you should be looking, I would assume you would be looking for developers that can be proficient with things like LangChain for J, Spring AI, like those types of projects that allow you to integrate somebody else's sciencey work into your enterprise solutions. Like that's where I would expect this to go in, operationalizing those things as well. Like how do you input the data into the data store and keep those up to date, and like AI safety with regards to making sure that like people aren't asking your chat bot for how to build a bomb and things like that, or preventing hallucinations and those kinds of things. Like those are the things that, again, you don't need Python for. Like I would expect every one of those things to be done in a language that a typical enterprise developer is comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of bias from us being on the show and knowing the Java ecosystem. And again, but I also want to call out the bias. You mentioned Hugging Face, which is a website that has a number of different models on it and tutorials on how to use that model.
It's like
I would challenge you to find one Hugging Face tutorial on that site in Java. They are almost exclusively in Python. And I think some of that is because of the gravity, right? The folks that are putting those tutorials together that did train the models and maybe have some proximity to it, they're going to use the language they're most comfortable in. So it's not that you can't do it in Java. It's not that you shouldn't do it in Java. I think there's some gravity to the data science space where the folks that are cutting edge there are doing a lot of the training and that work in Python. So when they write the tutorials and they write the how-tos, guess what they're using?
Mm-hmm.
Python.
That's fair. But again, like, and I will be the first to admit that Java is behind Python even in the consumption of these models. So like LangChain came out, it's been out for a bit of time. There's a business around it. Now we have LangChain for J. Like, let's not kid ourselves. They're trying to port that over. So like those kinds of concepts, Spring AI is an experimental project for us. But like those integration pieces are still new. I get that. But if you have an app, like, look at your requirements. Or if you're going to integrate, a Spring, if you're going to integrate AI into your doc search,
Yep.
you want a chat bot that to develop an assistant for that. If everything else on that platform is Java, are you really going to hire a Python guy to integrate that? How well is that going to work out for you?
Exactly. You're talking about, hey, I have Solar, I have OpenSearch, I have Elastic. Like, what's in common with all those search engines? They all run on the JVM. So I mean, there is absolutely, like, if you want to do certain things with AI, Java is a piece of that puzzle. And I think there's a lot of things out there that are helping Java interop. So I mean, we talked about 22 with the foreign language, with the foreign function interfaces. That's something that they're focusing on so that you can do interop with native languages, with things in Python. One of the things I've been playing around with, and Freddie, we were talking about this before the show, is like Apache Arrow, where you can have these data change for interprocess communications where, okay, you did something in Python. Well, guess what? We want to scale it up and put it in Java, but we don't want to copy the memory each time that we load the model. Can we do a zero copy memory thing with a framework?
Yeah,
all that stuff is possible, right? So, and your talent at your organization is still going to be what it is, right? If you've hired a bunch of Java developers, you're not going to fire them all for Python developers. Maybe you do in today's market, but that's crazy, right? Like that is not an easy thing to do.
I think the right approach is like because that is I think a good way, right? Like if you do go to Hugging Face and you do the tutorials in Python, like keep that in the back of your pocket. Like you're a Java developer, you get exposed to Python, say like, you know what, I downloaded and built and generated image using Hugging Face on Python, and I know how to do that. Because technically that's the advantage of Python, if anything, is that it's supposed to be easy to pick, right? Like it started as a small, like, interpreted language, and most of the stuff really is they're wrappers for C++ anyways. So they're trying to hide the performance and all that stuff. So that's why it's popular with data scientists, because they can get the performance by just putting like 5 or 6 statements together. Not discrediting the work. There's a lot of work in there, but it's something that, if you have been doing enterprise development, if you've been doing Java development, sliding into 2 weeks of I'm just going to do some Hugging Face stuff, and then I can add it to my resume, and then get snatched. That's really not a bad play to make, right? And again, like you will need Java or some kind of enterprise language to actually do the things with the data. Like the data models is not an end on itself, right? Like you can't, like, it's closeted in a little thing it cannot do. It will need to talk to the world, and they're gonna realize how much value having somebody who knows beyond Python it's to the team. So
I compare it similar to interacting with databases. Like, just because the database was written in C or C++ or some other esoteric language that performed well for its use case, does that mean my whole app should be that? Probably not. And like, don't get me wrong, databases have a standardization around the API at every language. Java obviously having their own that enables that to be more consumable. We aren't there yet with AI models. I get that, but I think that's where, like I said, LangChain, Spring AI, like those types of technologies are going to lead the way in democratizing the consumption of those.
Yep. So
I was just going to say, to bring this back around to other things that you can do if you've been, laid off or something has happened to your job recently. It would be to go to user group meetups and reach out. The biggest thing is networking with people, because that's where you make connections to make new inroads, to different avenues in your career. So I think it's a good idea to go to a Java user group or Python user group or whatever suits your needs the best, and kind of go from there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
building the network is super important. I mean, I
Mm.
know folks that have been laid off that I've worked through, with open source. And, kind of the cool thing about being able to work outside your company is if you have those opportunities, you make those opportunities, is you have a network of referrals of people that have actually seen your code that are not in the same situation you are, because they're at a different company and they can speak to your work and how you work on a team, even further than that. So the user group thing, great recommendation. Getting involved in open source, if you have the time, it's a great way to get some code samples out there. It's like, okay, yeah, I could give you a programming test, but if you want to look at some pull requests, here's some stuff I've written. Here's some message boards posts.
If you're sitting on the bench as a laid off employee, like getting an open source, even Stack Overflow, building up a reputation there. Getting involved, getting your name out, building up a reputation that is independent of the private source code you've built in your previous lives. Can't emphasize enough how important that is.
Yeah, no, and we've seen it, like we did have, like on the Seattle Java user group, there's an uptick of people that are coming in just to like network, and it was like that. There were actually people there that were actually looking to hire others, and that's how things happen. So there's probably a user group close to where you are. The Java user groups are enormous, and just go talk to them. Yeah, it's always great. It's the Java ecosystem. Java has usually a very good community. Lean on them.
And if you can't get out to a user group, if you're in a rural area or whatever, I think the virtual user group is back up online,
I
right?
thought that was back up. Yep.
Yep.
That's a good thing to get on, just to chime in and get on the mailing list and start to talk to folks that are on those meetups. That'd be a good thing.
The last maybe we do this one as a quick one is you're in review, right? It's been another year. We're active, not as much as we used to be, but we did publish some stuff out. So what was interesting this year? I have a favorite, but
What was my favorite? I don't know. We started with layoffs and we're ending with layoffs, so it kind of feels like we're starting and ending on a little bit of a negative. But
it's Groundhog Day.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to think about the positives for this year a little bit, because it has been a very odd year.
JDK 21.
I mean,
That's
conferences are back. There's that. Hey,
Yeah.
that's you know what? That's my number one. And we didn't cover conferences at the beginning, and we actually have a number of good conferences coming up in the early and later part of this year. So I don't know if we want to talk through those.
Yeah. No, that is true, because we'll be at a conference.
That's right. DevNexus, right? So that is coming up in March. Or no, April. Sorry.
April.
That was the IntelliJ is March.
Yeah, it's March. But yeah, like the DevNexus Fall has been so kind to invite us over. We will have a live session. If you happen to go there, we'll make sure that there's signage, like it always happens. We're almost like the room of requirements for Harry Potter. Like you don't know where we are until you need to find us, and then we'll make sure that there's some kind of way for you to like really find us. Like last time they moved our room at the last minute.
We need to grab one of those guys that like spins the signs, stands on the street corner out by the street and spins signs.
Can we get Glenn to do that? He's like our best like advocate.
Oh gosh. Yeah, so we'll be down there. Do join. So yeah, so before we go to the actually maybe we should go to the list real quick, because that is a highlight. Conferences are back. IntelliJ IdeaConf, March 6 and 7. That one is virtual, right? So yeah,
I believe that's virtual, yes. Yeah, I've not been to this one before, but I did see something on the mailing list about it. It does look like it is going to be, quite a quite a good speaker list. There's Venkat is there, Trisha G, and Carl Hines, Josh Long. You know, you name it. Lots of them are going to be there, and it sounds like they've got some pretty good topics. So probably a pretty good one to check out.
Yeah, yeah. The next one is Mike.
Yeah, so if you are an international listener or are just looking to get to Barcelona, which is a beautiful city, I cannot recommend it enough. Spring IO is going to be back in Barcelona again. They do a great job. It really is a great conference, all spring focused, mix of the spring engineers and community. It's about 1,200 to 1,300 people that attend. Like I said, and you can't beat Barcelona in May. It's just a gorgeous place. It is May 30th and 31st, so check it out.
Right. Oh, this one is Apache, right?
Oh yeah, the next one is mine. So Community Over Code North America. So that is a conference run by the Apache Software Foundation. I believe the call for proposals for talks is now closed, but you can still attend the conference. It's going to be October 7th through the 10th in Denver, Colorado. And I missed the one last year, so I'm going to try really hard to make the one this year. I loved the last one they had in Denver. They had a bunch of food trucks out there every day for lunch, so it was a good time. A lot of good beer, a lot of good conversation.
Oh, nice.
Good.
Although the last one was when the Heartbleed dropped. And it was fun getting on an elevator and just listening to Mark Thomas talking open to SSL with a number of different people. Is Tomcat vulnerable to this? That was fun. I think the next one is also mine. So the next one is Dev to Next. So for folks that remember, that was Venkat's conference in Colorado. So Venkat Suparamana was going to put on a conference, and then COVID happened.
Oh God.
And it got pushed back twice, and then eventually it got canceled. It's finally coming back. Their call for proposals and talks is going to be closed, I'm sure, by the time we edit this. But that one is also going on September 30th through the 3rd. So you can make Community Over Code and Dev to Next. That's going to be in Lone Tree, Colorado. So a lot of Colorado conferences.
Wow.
Lots of great speakers there too.
Yeah, the wonderful speakers and run by one of the best.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there's like if you're hurting for content there's the G Champions conference videos are available now.
Yep.
So yeah, like for those who don't know, like G Champions is a kind of like organized by Ken Fogel, I guess he's the one who organizes it, and he essentially asked the Java champions to, hey, come here, talk to something cool about like the aerospace that you are. So you tend to have also very good speakers, just because like these people are usually the speakers are Java champions. So they put all the stuff out for free, right? They happen in the beginning of the year, but now like they have all the videos out there. So if you have time or you're like urgent to learn like cool new things, super easy to like slide in and start watching those videos.
Definitely.
So yeah, those are like the conferences that we have. I think that yeah, like for me, the the drop of Java 21 and Loom and virtual threads and all the performance like goodies, I'm still playing with that because like we're so close to actually rewrite some core part of our stuff that allow us to save money, because CPU cycles that are like a 10% performance improvement, it really means that you're paying like less in your cloud costs. So for us is like gosh, it's so fun.
So Grawl all the things.
Yeah,
Native?
it was so fun because the 21 forced us to upgrade Spring and upgrade our old libraries, and now we are like we're like just a stone's throw from trying this on Grawl. Like it's so much good, and it's, so we are the other thing that we will try, and with this generational no which one is it? Generational ZGC, right? Is available on 21. That's another thing that we're gonna start like tuning. It's that's why it's keeping us busy in a good way, in the sense that it's not just technology for technology's sake. It's technology for a actual outcome of cost savings. So yeah, I think that's why and plus it's a geek thing. So performance.
Very cool.
Yeah. What else happened that was of note? Conference are back. Yeah, well, spring was released.
It's released every year, twice a year, May and November.
All right.
That's good.
I
And,
think
and so the other thing I would say would be that I was able to start developing Jakarta EE applications using Java 11 because Jakarta EE 10 came out late 2022. So I really started to get into that last year, and that was good. That was a big thing on my plate.
Gosh, congratulations to 2018.
Yes. Well, and now you're making the big leap to 17 and
There
21
you
here
go.
coming up soon.
There
So
you go.
I mean,
you're coming with us.
There you go.
I am. I'm off of Java 8.
Oof, oof. No, of course,
Just before end of life.
Yeah,
it's like jumping at the last second. Like
I'm not paying those support costs, right?
I was about to say, or Oracle's gonna come a knocking.
Extended.
they do knock on doors. Of course, we're forgetting like the big one. I'm sorry, I completely forgot. It's AI and large language models. That was a discussion of 2023 and how that affects like engineers. So that was also like big news. In my corner of the world, we are completely into it. So we actually do use one of this GitHub Copilot to like help us in our code, and it's very easy to just use it all the time. It's it's one of those you don't, if you don't know it, you don't know, you're fine. But once you know that you can actually just write two comments and um and generate the code, it's amazing. So that was
So Freddie, is your job going to be replaced by an AI bot?
they still need like somebody who it's there's still punditry. So somebody still needs to write the
Freddie's a
comment.
prompt engineer.
Freddie's he's a people
He has
person.
people skills.
Oh gosh,
Yes, people
that's
skills.
Oh man, how many people that
right
listen to our podcast get that joke?
I'm definitally showing my age on it.
Yeah,
but it's
right.
awesome.
Great movie. If you haven't watched it,
Required watching.
Office
you
Space.
probably Office Space it's And you know what? Like the Initech logo, if you remember correct, like if you can remember the Initech logo, it reminds me of Microsoft Foundation classes, because the Microsoft Foundation classes, when they were in Visual Studio, had exactly the same logo, which is like these three little cubes in there. But yeah, so yeah, like AI is the story. I do think that there might be some companies that think, oh, I can replace all my seniors with a large language model, and that's not how that works, at least just yet.
I was going to get a lot of consulting gigs unwinding all that.
Yeah.
No, it's I think it's misguided, because you like the LLM can tell you like, oh, maybe you could write this code, but you still need somebody who can look deep into like the design and architecture to be able to make those decisions, right? Brian Getz says that you want to create code that makes it very hard to write bugs. Like that is kind of like the purpose, right? Like and that's why you have all these patterns and all this design choices, and I don't is the LLM cannot infer that, right? Like, or at least it can right now. Maybe it can in the future, but like right now it can help you just like saving your feedback loop to Stack Overflow and back, right? But saying, oh, you need to do decorator here and maybe do dependency injection for this reason so you can do the test better. You need people that has been burned by that a
Mhm.
lot to get that to happen. So
And
knock
many
on wood.
developers, I would argue that a large majority of developers are working on applications for their organizations or the companies that are customized towards the business logic of that organization and that company and that workflow that those businesses follow. And I don't see that these AI, language interpreters are going to be able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it will be a lesson that we are all collectively going to learn. So, I think, Oh gosh, you can keep talking forever, but I think this is a good pause, and I think what we'll do is next one we'll probably do one for March, and then we'll see you guys in Dev Nexus. So. Thank you for listening. Like we said, hang in there. Don't worry, this goes in cycles, and we're sure that we're all gonna end up in a good place. And with that, good vibes. This is Freddie signing off.
Happy 2024. Bob signing off.
Josh signing off.
Michael signing off. If you're on Twitter or X, whichever you want to call it these days, be sure to follow us at OffHeap. And if you're checking this out on YouTube, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe.
All right. We did it! Another one.
All right.
All right.
Let me kill the record.